Hi guys and girls. My name is Ali and today I wanna talk with you about one of my absolute favorite Warhammer lords. You might never guess it, Elspeth von Draken. Actually you might have guessed it cause of the video title. Nonetheless I will tell you more about her story and why I like her so much. Elspeth von Draken, also known as the Dark Lady of Nuln, is a magisterix of the Amethyst Order. The Amethyst Order is dedicated to the lore of death, a very feared school of magic. Elspeth wields a scythe, called the Pale Scythe. This weapon is saturated with death magic and bends to her will. She also has a magical hourglass and it is said that it can be used to control time or death itself. But that are just stories. Nobody knows how old Elspeth is. She looks like a woman in her best age, but at least 3 full generations knew her already as Dark Lady, so she is definitely way older than a normal human would be or than her looks would suggest. She resides in a blackened tower on the edge of the Gardens of Mor at Nuln. The Gardens of Mor are also known as Temples of Mor, dedicated to the god of death. Although they look like a graveyard and you would expect skeletons, vampires, and necromancers there, it is actually the total opposite. These gardens are imbued with potent protections of faith and magic, particular against those beings that would defy the certainty of death. Nearly every imperial settlement has a Garden of Mor. Nuln's is one of the more prominent ones because of Elspeth's dark tower. Because of this, she is also called the Graveyard Rose, and stories about her are told to little children to scare them and make them obey their parents. The Dark Lady will snatch you is often used as a threat for children. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe if you like my Warhammer Fantasy Lore series. Today with a new approach. Please leave your comments on it below. Yet despite these stories, few have ever paused to think what exactly the admitted presence of Elspeth von Draken in the city actually means, and fewer yet could guess at her true power or influence. Sometimes overly motivated witch hunters try to investigate on her, unaware of her personal power and her connections to imperial authorities. Whoever delved too deep into her business was swallowed up so completely, they have never been able to share anything they have learned. But you are one of the few who will get to know the truth now. But it is on your own risk. Elspeth von Draken is not a vampire or a necromancer as you might have guessed. Remember, the Gardens of Mor are protected against those, but she is from an ancient bloodline, kissed by the winds of magic. A connection between a bloodline and the winds of magic themselves occurs very rarely, but when it happens, it either produces terrible monsters or heroes and saviors. But to which of those does Elspeth belong? Although Elspeth is a magisterix of the Amethyst Order, she is not very engaged in the Order's daily business. Instead, she prefers to experiment herself in her dark tower or in a hidden hideout somewhere in the Grey Mountains. She also likes to collect all kind of artifacts and guards them jealously. She became so saturated with Shyish, the amethyst wind of death, that there are some who whisper she is no longer human at all, a theory perhaps given to credence by her almost spectral, pallid aspect, which has remained unchanged for decades. Despite all this, she is a true scion of the Empire and the bane of its foes where they cross her path. She also has a close connection to the Council of Nuln. In Warhammer Total War she is also often mentioned as the Elector Count of Wissenland, although that is not true. This position belongs to Emanuelle von Leipwitz, the only female Elector Count. When Nuln or the Empire call for aid, Elspeth and her death magic are here to serve. Balthasar Gelt, the current patriarch of the Imperial Colleges of Magic, is of course wary of Elspeth's power and independence. His agents are tracking her, but she is not easy to spy on. While Elspeth von Draken continues to concern herself with her own affairs, and stands as a protector of the Empire, Gelt must do no more than watch. But there are those beneath him in the hierarchy of wizards who fear, that Gelt's suspicion of the powerful von Draken may yet provoke a deadly conflict between them. In the end times, when chaos attacks the whole world of Warhammer, Elspeth also plays a role. After the Auric Bastion had fallen, the Empire was open for attacks. Many imperial realms had fallen and Wissenland was one of the last to withstand chaos. Timur Khan, a chaos general and champion of Nurgle, attacked Wissenland with a huge army, and Emmanuel, the Countess of Wissenland, intended to fight this foe in open field. But Elspeth showed up in council and convinced her that this was suicide and instead they should fortify and defend only Nuln. Especially since Fieldorf a few days earlier, also heavily fortified, has fallen and left no survivors. They brought all humans still alive, all livestock and as much food as possible into the city. The built-forward fortifications, manned with the finest man and artillery Nuln had to offer. The other imperial provinces could not send much aid, since their armies were already spread far and thin. A full chapter of knightly orders made it nonetheless. Unfortunately, many of Nuln's troops were no available, since they were sent to other provinces to support them. On the side of Nuln did also fight Theodore Bruckner, Countess Emmanuel of Nuln's champion. A man huge and strong, close to a giant. Some people even think he has sinister origins in Norska or is the result of a dark alchemical experiment. Theodore Bruckner swore to kill Timur Khan and with him the threat to Nuln. To protect him against chaos sorcery, Elspeth von Draken gave him a talisman. That should have dire consequences though. Nuln, as one of the greatest seats of industry in the Empire, was well prepared for a siege and its warehouses were full of black powder, weapons, and armor. All refugees in Nuln were assigned to the militia, quickly trained and well equipped. When the attack started, Nuln itself was heavily fortified, and also the forward front line. Timur Khan himself on his dragon led the first attack. Chaos warriors, followed by chaos spawn, ogres and trolls stormed forwards. On the flank, chaos knights, marauders and wastelanders supported the main attack. And as if this was not enough yet, scouts sighted another huge chaos army marching towards Nuln from the south. Although the situation was dire, Lady Elspeth von Draken and Nuln's army were ready to repel the invaders in this chill hours. The Empire's forward batteries answered first to this attack. Rapid-fire cannons fired at Timur Khan and his vanguard on extreme range. Many chaos troops, trolls and giants got crushed into pieces, but the horde was endless. Whenever someone fell, 5 new appeared. When the battles started, Elspeth von Draken watched from the back of her carmine dragon as it clutched to a high cathedral spire like a terrifying, living gargoyle. Before you ask, a carmine dragon is a very rare one and dedicated to the lore of death. Soon chaos was in range for the hand cannoneers and thousands of bullets welcomed the warm chaos bodies. The air was foggy from all the black powder and the wind became chill despite the heat of the battle. Closer and closer came the horde and soon the state troops arrayed in defensive squares. They began to see the true horror of the foe that had come to claim their lives. Man started to scream in horror or hurl prayers into the sky. Warrior priests went up and down the lines to keep the man from breaking before battle even started. At Asher's levy, Count Esmer Tolbruck led the defend with several hundred men and a couple of war machines. Here the front lines also met first. Pike and spearmen welcomed the chaos attack with cold steel. The army of chaos crushed into the imperial lines at Asher's levy, but they did not break through. Meanwhile, 1,000 knights and mounted pistoliers prepared to flank the chaos advance. When they engaged into combat to stop the chaos attack, they got slaughtered and overwhelmed. The remaining defenders were too few to withstand effectively and they prepared to slowly retreat to the center, to Crow's levy. Unfortunately, also chaos had brought siege weapons and when they started to fire, many Imperials died in a bloody explosion. Imperial artillery answered the call, now from Nuln directly, and the sky darkened. The artillery duel became intense with huge losses on both sides. Chaos Dwarfs reinforced the attackers' positions, and soon their artillery also began to fire. For every shell they fired, 100 Imperial shells fired back at Chaos, but they were just so many. Chaos pushed forward on Crow's levy, trench for trench, and a heavy battle started. Then all Imperial soldiers retreated back, and Chaos was eager to chase them. When they pushed forward, a line of 100 of handgunners awaited them, and mowed them down in a few couple of salves. Then the Empire pushed forward, reclaiming the earlier lost trenches. When flying manticores attacked the defenders, Elspeth joined battle herself and let no flying monstrosity harass Imperial ground forces. Meanwhile in the center, Kask the Befouled lead Tamerkon's honor guard into battle. This demons and demon worshippers were the very elite, and state troopers did stand no chance against them. All the hard defended trenches had to be given up, and so the Empire slowly retreated towards the river bank. When a company of pikemen and archers arrived, the Nuln forces tried to stop this advance, but the pikes and arrows proved very ineffective against the rusted and slime-coated armor of the Rot Knights. Only when Hellblaster volley guns targeted this assault, it was slowed down, but at a high cost in life and materials. The longer the fight lasted, the more state troopers broke and fled towards Nuln. When front line was about to break, the finest great swords units, the Exchequer Guard with gold-chased double-handed swords, entered the fight. Behind them came the great gleaming war altar of the Nuln Archlector. He got escorted by fanatic, screaming zealots, none of them afraid of death, ready to sacrifice their life for the Empire. When they threw themselves in battle, it was the first time Chaos advance stopped. Units of barbarians and trolls even broke and retreated in face of this fanatics. The zealots' blades were soon soaked with blood. Even the most deadly Chaos Knight could not withstand them and were torn apart by this fanatic's blades. Tamerkon knew, if he does not intervene, the attack would fail. He joined the fight on his dragon Bobebolos, reinforced by a full horde of beastmen. Although the Imperial troops fought without fear, they still got pushed back. The attacking masses were simply too much. Nuln did send floating pontoon forts, manned with mortars and archers, to reinforce the defenders on the other side of the river. Although mortar fire slowed Chaos advances, they still lost slow but steady ground. Soon the Chaos attackers were in range of the Nuln snipers, and a deadly volley began. Even some mighty war mammoths fell to this bullets, thousands died. On the northern front, Chaos under the lead of Lord Drazulf had advanced and overwhelmed the defenders. From here Chaos prepared to flank army center and launch attacks on Nuln direct. They were preparing their siege cannons when suddenly the earth beneath them began to shake. Confused they looked around, when they saw huge Imperial machineries rolling towards them. They were way bigger than steam tanks, and soon Chaos experienced a new class of tank, the land ships. This land ships, accompanied by Imperial grenadiers, pushed back all attackers and were able to reclaim the defensive position. Lord Drazulf was terrified and swore to destroy and kill them all. When he prepared for a counter-attack, he suddenly realized he got flanked by Empire outriders. But not ordinary ones, but equipped with strange weapons. These weapons were crafted by Clan Scryer and highly deadly. The Empire had seized these weapons and used them now as their own. Soon all Chaos troops, mostly Chaos Dwarfs, were scattered and defeated. But this was only a short victory, since more Chaos troops started to march towards the northern flank again. Meanwhile in the south there was a small monastery, called the Monastery of the Black Lilies. Elspeth von Draken was scouting on her dragon when she sighted Tamerkon there, amassing an army of elite Chaos demons. Elspeth realized this was their chance to take out the Chaos general and behead the army. A group of elite knights and Theodore Bruckner on his demi-griff, who swore to kill Timur Khan, rode into battle. Above them Elspeth on her carmine dragon. They surprised the abbey's defenders and soon the slaughter started. Elspeth killed many Chaos Knights effortless with her ghostly scythe. Her magic of death tore apart many before they even knew what happened to them. Her dragon smote the chest of a great unclean one, a very powerfully demon. Meanwhile Theodore Bruckner challenged Timur Khan. He trusted in the magic medallion that was gifted to him from Elspeth and launched into battle. The champion slaughtered all the guards but Timur Khan in return killed Bruckner's loyal demi-griff. Then a duel between these two started. Although Theodore Bruckner was a powerful champion, he stood no chance against Timur Khan, the champion of Nurgle and one of the greatest chaos generals in existence. Bruckner stood no chance, and in the moment he died, Elspeth's talisman around his neck burst into furious life. A gigantic explosion consumed Bruckner, but also the champion of Nurgle, and only a big crater was left behind. High above them Elspeth von Draken, exhausted from the long fight, watched the scenery and smiled in satisfaction. She managed to stop the chaos assault by turning Theodore Bruckner without his knowledge into a living bomb. Her job was done. The carmine dragon fell lifeless from all the wounds he suffered from the sky, and Elspeth von Draken faded like smoke in the night, having sacrificed everything to save her beloved empire. I hope you did like my lore overview of my favorite lord in Warhammer Fantasy. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, cause this helps me a lot.